Right, hi everybody, Adam Clery from FourFourTwo and Chelsea. It would simply not be right for me to stand here in front of you all just a few short months ago, rubbing my thighs and telling you why I was right all along and this Chelsea team were title challengers, and then not come back all limp and spongy to tell you about why it's gone wrong. So, yeah, that's the whole intro. So, it's injuries. That's it. It's injuries. Please like and subscribe. I mean, obviously not like the number of injuries. This Chelsea squad is more densely packed than Boris Johnson's local wacky warehouse on his birthday, but the type of injuries they're getting to specific players. To be more specific, I mean 𝗕𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏 and Wesley Fofana. I cannot tell you how important to the overall way this entire Chelsea team plays they are. Like, don't get me wrong, and believe me, we will talk about this later on in the video, but you can now add Nicholas Jackson to a list that's got 𝗦𝗶𝗴𝗍𝗀, 𝗦𝗶𝗴𝗍𝗀, and 𝗕𝗫𝗓𝐿 Felix, who's on loan. They're missing centre forwards in any capacity. That's bad, but missing those two is fatal. If you put their respective seasons side by side when they were in the team and then when they were out of the team, this bad run Chelsea have been on, where they've gone from looking like Liverpool's best challengers to probably not even getting into Europe at all if they continue the way they're going, it almost overlaps perfectly. And why is that? Well, look at Manchester City when they were at their best. Look at Arsenal when they felt like a real force. Look at Liverpool now. The best teams are no longer the prettiest. They always now have a really dominant, really physical edge to complement their more technical players and give them the space to play. And Fofana and Lavia were, and I hope I'm not doing them a disservice here, Chelsea's two best bastards. You look at their tackles, you look at their interceptions, you look at their shots blocked, their headers, all the stuff that earns the rest of the team the right to play football. And Fofana and Lavia were very quietly in those opening few months of the season really dominating those matches for Chelsea. And don't get me wrong, right? This stuff doesn't automatically win you anything, and the teams who can only do this side of it don't go very far either. But to be right at the top and to win things, it is vital. Like, this is Fofana and Lavia's combined defensive contributions against Aston Villa earlier in the season when Chelsea won 3-0. It's every time they won a tackle, it's every time they won a header, it's every time they intercepted a ball or made a clearance or just otherwise recovered possession for their side. And believe me, right, that is a lot for a team that had 64% of the ball. They were nearly doing all of that work for their team. And I'm just going to leave this up for a couple more seconds so you can really just absorb it, take it in, let it get into all your pores, right? Because the one really remarkable thing about all of this is how it compares to other players. These are the exact same instances from the exact same game from the two players they were both partnered with, Enzo Fernandez and Levi Colwill. Now, it is obviously a fraction of the dogged defensive physical work that their partners were doing, but there is a reason for that. This is Levi Colwill's heat map. And have you ever, my friends, seen a defender enjoying more freedom to just go where he wants up the centre of the pitch, to carry it out from the back, to help you get an extra man in the middle and dominate that other team? Look at all these lovely free passes forwards and sideways in the centre of the pitch, safe in the knowledge that they weren't going to get physically dominated because Fofana was in there, and if anything goes wrong, he's available to make interceptions, to make blocks, to make tackles, to do that work for you. And likewise, this was Enzo Fernandez's day's work, and what a lovely little time he's having. An absolute classic example of a deep player in a pivot being able to move into the forward line because your team are inverting a fullback. It was Moises Caicedo this day, and Chelsea were absolutely at their best when the team ended up looking like this. Like, what a stable base they've got there, and what real good variety they've got in their centre-backs, and the ability to get Fernandez all that way up the pitch. Beautiful. And as such, because you've got Fernandez here now, you can link up with Jackson, who's up front. You can link up with Palmer, who's enjoying all this space. You can link up with, I think this was Jadon Sancho, played on the left that day. This is exactly where he wants to be, and he's doing so safe in the knowledge that things behind him are safe and they are stable. That this is happening with Levi Colwill in this game and that this is happening with Enzo Fernandez in this game is not a coincidence, right? When you've got Fofana and you've got Lavia, these two can do this. But when you don't have those two players, as Chelsea just didn't against Brighton when they were absolutely terrible, Fernandes goes from having an afternoon like this to having an afternoon like this. It's really far back. He's not getting in the right areas. It's disjointed. You can see he's trying to force things much longer from deeper positions, which is not really his game at all. There is a knock-on effect to missing those players. And likewise, Levi Colwill in the exact same position, unable to impact the game the way he wants to impact the game, looking way less assured, looking way less confident, and also giving the ball away a lot more. And I will just say, by the way, one constant between both this good run and this bad run has been Moises Caicedo. If we look at his numbers across the whole season, he's actually performing really well for all this stuff they miss Fofana and they miss Lavia for. But the difference now is that when Chelsea do their inversion and they get that stable base, that's now usually Gusto and Caicedo, which is far less sort of stable and secure as Lavia and Caicedo. Basically, they still have got a little bit of it in him, but he can't do it all. And also, this is maybe a slightly basic point to make, like, Lavia is just shy of 6 foot, which is a really important sort of thing to have in front of your defence if a team tries to go long over your press. Like, Gusto and Caicedo just aren't going to compete for those. And if your two defensive midfielders aren't going to compete in the air, that puts more pressure on your centre-backs to then get out and try and do that for them. So you can see small things in one place, but they end up being big things in another. So, yeah, I guess the main point I'm trying to make is if you were wondering why Chelsea looked so much better this season than they did last season, it was because they'd added that physicality to their technical game, and that was allowing them to dominate. And the way they'd done that was that Fofana and Lavia, who missed pretty much all of last season with injuries, they were now settled in the side. They gave them that thing they didn't have last year, and lo and behold, you take them both out with injuries this season, and Chelsea kind of revert back to that sort of good in patches, but largely quite sort of weak and easy to push around team. That seems to make sense to me. And I will say as well, if you're just sort of struggling to get your head around why Fofana and Lavia's absences could make life so much harder for Colwill and Fernandes, right? Imagine that the other way round, right? Where the two technical players in those partnerships, they were both gone, and now Fofana and Lavia, against their games, had to carry the ball more, had to pass the ball more, had to make things happen. Imagine how much they would struggle to do that. Works both ways. Now, technically, that's me wrap this all up in record time and get myself home and paint all my Warhammer 40,000 miniatures. But that only explains why their form has dropped off in recent weeks, not why they've just gone to Brighton twice and their only real shot on target was this from Parma, which goalkeepers union here is not a shot on target. So the question we really need to answer here is not why has it suddenly gone bad, it's why has it gone from bad to much, much worse. Because even if you have lost the physical core of your side, you're no longer able to dominate games the way you were, you should still be able to create something. But just, oh God, I hope you're sitting down, have a look at the absolute state of this. And I mean, really take that in. Let the absolute pungent stench of it get into your clothes. So I'll try and explain, right? So Chelsea, without Fofana and without Lavia, obviously, but also without Jackson and without 𝗦𝗶𝗴Ｈ, because he'd just come off, had set up like this. Basically, Fernandes had gone up to there alongside Parma, although he was inverting with Nkunku, so there was sort of a 10, sort of a false 9 thing going on. Gusto had come into the middle with Caicedo. The back three were as follows, and the width was coming from Neto and Sancho. But first point of order, what fucking width? Like, Brighton have gone to a back five and you could shade every single one of those defenders with one umbrella, and yet Chelsea have zero interest whatsoever in all this space here and all this space here. And I know what you're thinking, because I thought the same thing, right? It's just the camera angle. One of them will be out here somewhere and they've just been cut off, because that's Fernandes. There must be a wide player out to his left, and nah, sorry, that is genuinely every single. You can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This one's Sancho. This one's Neto. That is legitimately what they were trying to do. And what's worse, somehow, right, is not the amorphous blob tactical shape they're in here, right? It's the body language of all of their attacking five. Just look at it. every single one of these lads is on his heels and walking slowly back towards the ball. Chelsea are in Brighton's final third. The defence is really deep. The lad on the ball has time and space, and they're not doing anything. None of them are trying to pull a defender out into these areas here to create a bit of space. None of them are spinning in behind it where there's already a bit of room. None of them are even coming short with any real purpose. Like, I know, like, none of you are like centre forwards in the classic sense. That wouldn't necessarily be your game, but just one of you has to do something. Like, I am genuinely asking, what do you think the plan was supposed to be in that situation? Because what happens is eventually it goes out to 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗔, who puts it in the box, and they get a sort of halfway decent chance out of it. But there is no way on earth in training they were like, right, look, lads, what we'll do is, in that situation, we'll get the ball out to the fullback, who'll make a wrong-footed cross, and Nkunku, Palmer, and Gusto, one of you get a big head on it, eh? Like, quite aside from the fact it would be really funny if that's how 𝗬𝗏 talked, there's just nothing to pull or stretch or strain or disrupt this defence. They're just allowed to sit in this block, and lo and behold, Chelsea could not get through it for 90 minutes. And it was like this for the entire game. This is another example later on where Gusto just ends up having a shot from distance. And again, look at the body language. All on their heels, all walking towards the ball, all doing what they think they should individually be doing in that situation without anybody being like, oh, hang on, someone's got to run in behind, someone's got to stretch this defence, and just nothing. Now, this is the bit that you might find slightly disagreeable, okay? Because I know 4 Chelsea fans. And first off, yes, that's right, I do have at least 4 friends, and they are all split exactly down the middle on this point, which, bad at maths, is 2 each. When you see situations like this, and you see the lack of movement, and you see the lack of penetration, lol, you realise how important Nicholas Jackson is to Chelsea as an attacking unit. Now, obviously, goes without saying that they've been on a long, bad run, and Nicholas Jackson was present for all of that long, bad run. But if the question we're asking now is, how has it gone from bad to just 0 offensive threat, he's actually the consistent there. He missed both of those games. And yes, his finishing has always been pretty suspect. For every really good chance he does take, there'll be 2 or 3 more that you cannot believe he's missed. And you look at here, his chance conversion numbers are more or less identical to last season. He's not even improving in the ways we thought he would. But crucially, he makes those movements. He isn't static. He is always looking to cover ground. He is always looking to get in behind. He is a nightmare for defenders to try and keep an eye on. And more importantly, he makes the space that all 5 of those players are just waiting to magically come. So many of his goals, so many of Chelsea's goals this season have involved some sort of run in behind from Jackson. Like here against Liverpool, every single time they got the ball in the middle, he was stretching that defence. But this time, and take note of this, because this is him and 𝗦𝗶𝗴្𝗍 who was missing, by the way, they both make that run in behind. They both try and stretch Liverpool. And it isn't a goal, nothing major comes of it, but it ends up with Cole Palmer getting the ball in this part of the pitch with this much room. Now you tell me, go back to that shot in the Brighton game, and in what universe is Cole Palmer ever finding that much space when everyone else is just slowly walking back towards the ball and nobody's trying to stretch the defence? He's not. My point is that he's not. And don't get me wrong, by the way, Palmer is out of form as well. His performances have really dropped off the last couple of games, just like Nicholas Jackson's performances have dropped off the last couple of games. But you start to rewind that back, you can see that the team as a whole is not functioning as well. Colwill is struggling, Fernandes is struggling. And why are they struggling? Because they're missing Lavia and they're missing Fofana. So you look at all the problems they've got, you can just about trace them all back to those 2 injuries, I think. Those 2 and what they bring to the team is a really important core ingredient in the way any team has to assert itself in a game of football. And you take that out and you start to get knock-on effects all throughout the entire rest of the team and across the pitch. And I mean, look, if you want me to really oversimplify this as much as I can, was this not like the first graph I used in this video? Like, chart the bad runs and compare them to when Fofana and Lavia were playing. Like, it almost lines up absolutely perfectly. And sometimes it is just that simple. But to take this to a slightly bigger question people are having as a result is, does this mean 𝗬𝗏 is actually getting found out as a manager? Was the big drop-off he had at Leicester last year just kind of who he is, and this is all really on him? And time will tell. Like, it sucks, these injuries, but a good manager would find ways to adapt and find ways to stop the season getting away from you as a result. So we will see in a couple of weeks if that's the case. And the same goes, by the way, for this question of, is it bad squad building? Do the board need burned at the stake? And we will see. They would certainly argue the money that's been spent and the amount of players available should be able to cover too little injuries to the squad. So if Maresca can do that with the players he's got, then I guess they're right. But if he can't, and this season completely slips away for Chelsea, then it's one of their faults. Possibly both. But anyway, speaking of which, the next 2 home games are Leicester and Southampton. Yay! And the next 2 away games are Villa and Arsenal. Oh no! So, we'll see. Anyway, though, if you have enjoyed this, and I do feel like I went slightly mad because I filmed it at 8 p.m. because I can't get into the studio for the rest of the week. Sorry about that. Do let me know in the comments below. Chelsea fan, not Chelsea fan, enjoying it, not liking it. Who's to blame in your eyes? Is it me, somehow, just for talking about it and making it worse? All thoughts and feelings, I told you I've lost my mind, absolutely welcome in the comments below. You can get me across all the social medias at Adam Clery, Clery, and the 442 socials are in the corner of the video. The latest issue of the magazine is on sale now because that's just how magazines work. They're always on sale, so you should pick one of those up. And that is all the words I could think to say. Subscribe to 442, follow me on social media, buy the magazine, watch more videos, consume, never leave me. Goodbye. God, I'm so hungry. See you later.